We are here today at the Carter House, which is a house or site and house owned by the state of Tennessee and operated by a group known as the Battle of Franklin Trust, which is a private nonprofit organization. And aside from a small operating grant from the Tennessee Historical Commission, this particular house is sustained by admissions, gift shop sales, memberships, and donations. And so this Battle of Franklin Trust Historical Society organization, they run several properties here around the town of Franklin, Tennessee, which is about, I think it's about 25, 30 miles south of Nashville. And so the Carter House is just one of many historical locations, including the Battle of Franklin battlefield, which you can go and tour and see. But on this trip, we took a look at the Carter House, and you get to start in this nice visitor center, and you can take a tour. And the tour is $20 per person. They'll take you in the house, and you have access to all the grounds, and of course you have access to this visitor center. A lot of history and information that you can read about. As far as a little bit of history from the Carter House, and this is coming from the brochure that they give you when you get there. Fountain Branch Carter, that's quite a name. Born in Virginia in 1797, moved to Tennessee as a young boy, and he married Mary Polly Armistead Atkinson on June 28th, 1823. And they lived in a house in downtown Franklin until 1830, when Carter moved his family into their newly built house atop the hill on the outskirts of town, and that's what we're going to be looking at today. The couple had 12 children, 8 boys and 4 girls, which prompted them to add on to the home. A wooden L was constructed several years later, adding 2 bedrooms. And so that's what we're going to be taking a look at today. And one of the reasons this house is so important to the area is because the Battle of Franklin pretty much was fought all around it. Here in this display, you see a little bit about Todd's story. Todd was one of Fountain Branch Carter's sons, and it was thought that he was not in the battle originally. And why were you not in the battle, Todd? I don't know, Margot. Well, we actually do know. He was furloughed. It talks about that here. He was furloughed, but he refused to sit out the battle at Franklin. And so he led this charge and was shot 9 times, mortally wounded. He lived for 36 hours and then died. The family basically found him out in the battlefield. It was quite a shock to his father, who thought that he was not in the battle. Crazy, crazy situation there. You know, it is interesting because they do go into the fact that this whole concept of seceding from the United States was a very controversial topic. It's not like everyone in the South just said, "Hey, let's go ahead and do that. Let's get out of the United States." There were families that were divided regarding this. In fact, you had some of this family that wanted to secede and join the Confederate Army, and then you had others who refused to do so and stayed loyal to the Union. So I was very fascinated with that whole concept. Here you got some maps of Franklin, Tennessee at the time, and kind of how the battle, where people were, where soldiers were during the battle. And they also have a list of the commanders, brigade commanders, division commanders, corps commanders, and of course the generals of each side for this particular battle. And after you get to look at the visitor center, you can walk out to the grounds and try to imagine the fact that back in 1864 you had just soldiers and fighting going on all around here, and not as many trees. There's a lot more trees now. You look at some of the old pictures, and it was pretty barren in some of these areas. There were some trees, but not like there is now. And you can't really tell from here, but you are on top of a hill. Over to the left side there, it slopes downward. And so kind of hard to appreciate that now. So we're walking up to the house. You can see the house there, kind of on the left side. You can see a slave cabin there on the right there, that little cabin right there. And they basically, Carter owned about 19 acres that expanded eventually to 300 acres, and he grew corn, wheat, oats, cotton, and potatoes, raised cattle and hogs, and he owned 28 slaves. And his net worth, according to the 1860 census, was about $62,000. So here we're coming up on one of the slave cabins, and so you can get a sense of what that was like. Of course, they've got these cannons out there that you can kind of look at. More there just kind of for effect and decoration. Here in the slaves' quarters, you can see they've tried to restore these things as much as possible, so people can get a sense of what it was really like. Although I'm sure that sign wasn't really there. And then, you know, you got the fireplace and a bed and just a real small quarters there. But yeah, the interesting thing, in addition to getting to see the grounds and getting to see kind of this snapshot of history, is the information concerning the battle. And we had a really great tour guide that told us all about that. So I'm going to read to you a little bit of information about the battle, because we weren't allowed to go inside the house. Well, we could go inside the house. Let me rephrase that. We go inside the house, but there's no photography or video allowed in the house. So it says, on November 30th, 1864, the small community of Franklin, Tennessee was changed forever. That afternoon, federal forces commanded by Major General John M. Schofield had positioned themselves behind formidable earthworks on the southern edge of Franklin. At 4 p.m., General John Bell Hood launched a massive frontal assault on the federal position, an attack which was bigger than Pickett's charge at Gettysburg. And so you kind of imagine that this stuff was happening all around here, and the Union soldiers were trying to get up to Nashville to fortify it, and Confederate soldiers were trying to stop them. And so this is kind of where a lot of this stopped. This is where the line was drawn. You can see some bullet holes here, because right in front of this particular structure here, of course, here are the bullet holes inside. This was the farm office that's right next to the house. But looking out that window, you know, you could imagine a whole line of Confederate soldiers coming up and the Union soldiers starting their formation right on the other side of that fence there and this farmhouse. And the battle took place all around this particular area. The people, the family who lived in the Carter house, the Carter family, they sought shelter in the cellar, and they stayed down there and stayed quiet and tried to hide out. Here we are getting ready to go into the house. Notice the courtyard right there between the kitchen and the house, and I'm standing in that courtyard right now. There were 57 dead soldiers just laying in that little area there, just in that area there, after the battle. Here's a quick look in the kitchen. And you can see that wasn't very big, but you got the kitchen here. And yeah, it was a fascinating story, thinking about the family and the war coming to their doorstep. There's a good picture of that courtyard again. 57 bodies just laying in that area. But yeah, you've got that. Just imagine the death and carnage all around the particular area. There were just 57 bodies just in that little courtyard right there, but all around there was just death. The fighting lasted just 5 hours and resulted in some 9,500 casualties, 2,000 dead, 6,500 wounded, and about 1,000 missing. So that is the Carter house. Unfortunately, you can't take video or photography inside, but hopefully this gives you a sense of what it was like. Well worth your time if you're in the Franklin, Tennessee area. Again, it's about 25 miles south of Nashville. Hope you enjoyed it. See you soon.